as a great artist and a scientist whose science informed his art, and as a Jew bearing witness to the ravage inscribed on body and spirit by the Nazis and Auschwitz, his work has a special interest for our modern condition. And it may be paradoxically that this special combination of accurate observation, rigorous analysis, clear reasoning, linguistic sensitivity, imaginative conception, multicultural understanding, and profound feeling was one of the reasons his work had so much initial difficulty in getting published. Besides the great reluctance of most European and American publishers to issue books on the Holocaust in the immediate post-war period when forgetting was high on the agenda of our civilization. These are the qualities that make his work unique, and working together inspire a narrative art that articulates habits of resistance to the totalitarian world of the concentration camps. At the center of his writing, we find reflection, thinking and seeing in both senses of the word, which he elaborates into a philosophy of living in the everyday. While it would be important to trace the philosophical thinkers connected to his views, my emphasis in this talk focuses on the ways in which his art not only presents, but enacts the process of resistance. His writing then not only reports on his past experience in the concentration camp universe of the Nazi war against the Jews, but also engages us in the present moment of its reading to comprehend how human beings could create and operate the extermination machine called Auschwitz. Spanning past and present, his writing gives us back that process of remembering which alone makes a civilized future possible. As we read his work, for example, what has been published in the United States in English translation as Survival in Auschwitz, The Reawakening, or The Periodic Table, which together incidentally form his version of a divine comedy like Dante's, we encounter not only accurate description, the how it was, but a multi-leveled analysis of why it took place. The how is past tense, the why is present tense. Thus, Se questo è un uomo, as it was entitled in Italian, and better translated in its British version as If This Be a Man. Survival in Auschwitz in English, in American. Or La Tregua, called The Reawakening in the United States, and more accurately, The Truce in Great Britain, not only describes Primo Levi's experience and resistance, but puts the how and why of Auschwitz to the reader. This doubled movement of the narrative, this inside and outside, situates the reader in a position parallel to Primo Levi's, both as narrator of and agent in the text. We participate with the narrator in the process of discovery. That is, we too discover that the Holocaust is not simply an episode in past history, but an ongoing experience demanding further inquiry, questioning, and above all, reflection. This, after all, is what happened to Primo Levi, who survived Auschwitz and after the war returned home to Turin and went about the business of reconstructing his life while his country and civilization were doing the same. In Vanadium, the penultimate chapter in his autobiographical fable, The Periodic Table, which was published in Italian in 1975 and translated into English in 1984 by Raymond Rosenthal, in Vanadium, Primo Levi recounts a series of events connected with his post-war work as manager of a paint factory in Turin. There was a problem with the shipment of resin used to make varnishes. Instead of drying and hardening upon application, the varnish, quote, after application remained indefinitely sticky, like lugubrious flypaper, unquote. The supplier of the resin, quote, a large and respectable German company, one of the segments into which after the war the Allies had dismembered the omnipotent IG Farben, and which Primo Levi only identifies as W, And then he adds, it is still a large and respectable German company that before admitting their guilt throws on the scales all the weight of their prestige and all their ability at wearing you down. This company must be apprised of the problem in order for a resolution to be found. Primo Levi, paint manager, therefore writes, quote, a well-mannered letter of protest setting forth the terms of the problem. And in a few days he receives, quote, a long and pedantic response that ignored our need for immediate action and on the essential point simply stated that the relevant tests were underway. A second letter is sent accompanied by a request for another shipment. And he urges the company, quote, to check with particular care the resin's behavior. This letter, too, receives a long-winded pedantic answer, along with the suggestion that the addition of 0.1% of vanadium naphthenate, quote, an addition that until then had never been heard of in the world of varnishes, will solve the problem. The two letters are signed by Dr. Müller, a common name in Germany. And yet Levi writes, quote, I could not quiet a doubt, the kind that refuses to be pushed aside and rasps slightly within you like termites, that this is the same Dr. Müller who was the civilian inspector of the chemistry laboratory Primo Levi worked in during the winter of 1944 in Buna, Auschwitz. His suspicion has been aroused by a misspelling. The H in naphthenate, N-A-P-H, is missing in both letters, an error that his Auschwitz inspector had consistently made. Many Holocaust memoirs have a heated quality bordering on the melodramatic and rely on adjectives and adverbs. By contrast, the periodic table is a cool book, the work of a chemist, quote, who weighs and divides, measures and judges on the basis of assured proofs and strives to answer questions. These scientific habits carry over into his writing, which finds, quote, the right word that is commensurate, concise, and strong to dredge up events from my memory and describes them with the greatest rigor and the least clutter. What Primo Levi has stumbled into through this post-war difficulty with resin is the rare opportunity to pursue his research into, quote, the human soul, a project triggered by his experience in Auschwitz. Chemistry and the human soul, we discover, are paired in Primo Levi's experience, in part as a result of the chemistry examination which he, the summa cum laude graduate in chemistry from the University of Turin in 1941, took in Auschwitz in the winter of 1944. Administered by one Dr. Panwitz, it led to his spending that winter in the warmth and relative security of a chemistry laboratory, as well as his contact with Dr. Müller. For Primo Levi, both men remain enigmatic. Since that time, quote, I have asked myself how he, Müller, and Panwitz really functioned as a man, how he filled his time outside of the polymerization and the Indo-Germanic conscience. Above all, when I was once more a free man, I wanted to meet him again, not from a spirit of revenge, but merely from a personal curiosity about the human soul. It is this project that has been reawakened by the vanadium naphthenate episode. This is not only a typical and representative moment in Primo Levi's writing, but a revelatory one, which shows us the kinds of questions he is asking about his experience in Auschwitz, as well as the context which generates them. And this inquiry into the human soul will be governed by the rules of scientific evidence, a rare combination, and perhaps for that reason alone, one of the most important.